I'm working my ass off, man, said no one ever, certainly not an internet entrepreneur ever. But apparently in China, people do literally work their asses off. In fact, there's lots and lots of evidence to suggest that lots of factories in China are indeed sweatshops. So, how do you know if your factory that's producing your stuff is a sweatshop? How do you check? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you. Now, if you like this kind of information where I'm helping you do more on your Amazon business right here in Australia, consider giving this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to my YouTube channel because we post brand new money-making information each and every day. If you've got any questions or comments, comment below and I'll answer them personally for you. With that being said, let's get sweaty. Hey Neil, what certifications do you look for or ask for to know your supplier is ethical? What does ethical mean? Because my interpretation of ethical could be much different to somebody else's interpretation of ethical, and my interpretation of good working conditions can be much different to somebody else's definition of good working conditions. So you've got to kind of think about that, and you've got to be, I feel like I want to say you've got to be realistic, you know, you've got to be realistic. Like in Australia, people really get paid very well to work relative to the rest of the world very little. Okay, that's a very cool thing. Very lucky to live in Australia. The lucky country, no doubt about it. Okay, the rest of the world though, it's different. It's different. India, China, all of that kind of Asia Pacific area. It's just very different. All right, so you have to kind of think what is locally at ground level. What are their own ethics? What is their own morality as far as that sort of thing? You've got to put yourself into their shoes, all right? Which is interesting to do. So there's that. The other thing as well, just specifically talking about China, like China used to have this thing which was called the 996, and that was working from 9 in the morning until 9 at night, so a 12-hour day, 6 days a week. That used to be the norm. 996, 9 a.m., 9 p.m., 6 days a week. They have since stopped that. That's become outlawed. But as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, that was prevalent in China. That was just normal for them, and everybody was just on board with that. Okay. They've stopped that now. It's become outlawed, and you know, for better or worse, they're working a much more quote-unquote westernized hours. So what is ethical? Well, that depends on you. But all we have to go on, as far as looking at factories, is there's only one real standard that matters. Let's just have a look for a product. So we can find us. Let's just find you a factory. Yeah, most people don't even realize you can change that from products to suppliers, and then instead of looking for a product, you actually look for a supplier. But you can. Over here on management certifications, if you are so inclined, you can check that box there, BSCI, which is the Business Social Compliance Initiative, something like that. I can't remember the exact thing, but anyway, it's that BSCI, and that's an internationally recognized standard for working conditions, for human rights, that sort of stuff. And so if that is important to you, then that gives you a independently audited assessment of the working conditions of a factory. Now, I will tell you, let's just have a quick look. All right, so I'm just going to uncheck it. Let's just go back to unchecking it. So, leather supplier, okay. 695. Well, that is surprising to me. I would assume that none of these, oh, confirmed, 695. what have we got now? Now to 60. So 10% of the suppliers have got that. That is because, well, it's not because the other 90% are doing the wrong thing by their employees. It's not that. It's because that compliance is expensive to have, okay? And we have this in our heads, this image that all factories are these big, clean, large, you know, like with people in masks, and like you see with these like IT kind of putting an iPhone together thing, okay? We've got this image of what a factory is. The reality of the majority of factories is much, much different. So you kind of got to take that into consideration. But anyway, so if it's really, really important to you, then the BSCI is the way that you do that. Now, in my experience, that's actually going to get rid of a lot of good factories that do the right thing by their employees, but they just don't get that certification, okay? And for me, if anything, you know, I'd probably look at just making sure that they were a verified supplier and that they had been verified by a company that I trusted. So let's just see who these people have been verified by. So it's probably, well, there's a lot more than 3 or 4, but you know, this is SGS Group, for instance. That's who I use for all my factory inspections. Typically, I use SGS. So I know if they've inspected, then they look at all this shit anyway. You know what I mean? So there's that, and then you can also argue, well, you know, that's what happens within their countries, and I'm going to not impose my own particular morality onto what they do. I'm going to just kind of let them get on with it, which is another way of handling that as well. The fuck 'em thing, I think, is the correct term for that. And depending on what you think will depend on whether or not you agree with that. That was a video from my regular Monday night Q&A session with the members of the Aussie Online Entrepreneurs. Over 2,500 members and growing. We're actually the fastest growing e-commerce community right here in Australia with sales of over $50 million. If you'd like to find out more about what we do at the Aussie Online Entrepreneurs, get yourself off to www.aussieonlineentrepreneurs.com.au and I will see you on the inside. Until then, bye!